Is it 7 o'clock exactly, somebody? I don't know.
Yes, it is. Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, thank you. So this is the Planning Commission meeting for the City of Hooper, April 9th, 2020. We are doing this meeting electronically to comply with the new orders from the state that all of these meetings are closed to the public, and it's being conducted via telephone or other electronic means. This one's being broadcast on YouTube and live streamed. Our Planning Commission is here. We have a quorum, and we would like to begin this meeting by having a reverence given by Commissioner Prince.
Our kind and loving Father in heaven, we come before thee to give thee thanks for all of the many blessings that thou hast given us. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet as a commission and to discuss the needs of the community members. Father, we ask that thou would please help us to have the inspiration and the understanding that we need to make wise choices and to be able to have a good feeling in this meeting, that those in attendance will feel that their needs are being considered. We ask that thou would please bless our country at this time and the world, that we will be able to have healing and the other things that we are in need of to face this virus that has attacked our world. We ask that thou would please bless the medical professionals and those who are working to find a cure, that they will be blessed with inspiration as well. Please help us to be able to be mindful of those in need and to be able to reach out to them and help them. And we thank thee for all that thou hast given us. We thank thee for this country, for the freedoms and blessings that we enjoy. And we ask that thou would please help us to always try to be better each day. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Commissioner Prince. Appreciate that. The next item on we are not going to be able to do a Pledge of Allegiance because we're all meeting remotely and we don't have a flag in every home. So we are omitting that tonight. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for the Planning Commission meeting in February. There was not one held in March. Has everyone read these? And are there any comments regarding the minutes for the February meeting?
I've read them and I motion that we, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I motion that we approve the meetings for the minutes for February 13th, 2020.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, there's been a motion made by Commissioner Platt that the minutes for the February 13th meeting be approved, and it was seconded by Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion passes. All right, we're moving on to our city business. And the first item that we have on our agenda is a public hearing. Unfortunately, with the electronic things, the comments for a public hearing will be handled through emails, I believe. It's a conditional use permit to amend the conditional use permit for an oversized structure for Tony Zuick on the property located at 5067 South, 5300 West. This was a large building that was built back in 2005, and there were some conditions added on that conditional use permit at a later date. They wanted plantings and landscaping out in front of the garage and along the park strip and between the garage doors to help mitigate the impact of the building to the neighbors. Upon inspection of this property, I found that the landscaping that has been done has been very favorable. I found that there is no park strip because there's no curb and gutter and sidewalk in any of that subdivision. And the driveways are paved right up to and including the garage door, not allowing for any place to do any landscaping. Mike, do you have any kind of a presentation on this, Mr. Fisher?
I do. I've just got a review memo that I made that reiterates what you've said. The purpose of the application is to amend the conditional use permit, which was issued in 2005 for an oversized structure. The applicant would like to remove portions of the original permit, including the requirement for landscaping in front of the building, as well as the requirement that they cannot park anything outside. In reference to the attached document, the application to amend the conditional use permit, item 1 on their list is not complete. So they're in their document, they're talking about the meeting the building codes, and we've not done that. We need to get this conditional use permit issue taken care of before we can do that. It's really, I think it's pretty straightforward as far as what they're asking for.
Okay.
There's really not a lot more there for me.
So if we amend the conditional use permit and remove these items, then you can proceed forward with your inspections, get a final inspection, and do the actual issue a building permit and a final occupancy permit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Shauna, is there anybody here that we can talk to about this? Anyone wants to make comments regarding this?
As far as the conditional use permit for public comment, I haven't received any emails or otherwise in the email for the Zwick conditional use permit.
Okay. So since we have no representation for this request or no public comments, then we'll close that and we will move forward to see if I would entertain a motion on this request.
Mary, just before you go into that, they can, if somebody's logged into the Zoom meeting, they can also notify me if they want to make a comment. We have several people that are not planning commission members logged in right now.
Okay.
That's another avenue if they would like to make a comment through that avenue.
Okay. So anyone out there that's listening to this, if you have a comment, how do they notify you, Mike? Just by clicking?
They can raise their hand or they can send me a chat.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to open it once again for any public comments, and we'll wait a few minutes or like a minute and see if anyone pops in to give them adequate time. Okay, it doesn't look like there's any activity on that end.
No.
So we will close the public comment, and then we can entertain a motion. Right? Or is there any discussion amongst the commission members regarding this?
No, I move to amend the conditional use permit on the items that we just discussed.
To remove the plantings and landscaping in front of the garage, along the park strip and between the garage doors.
Correct, yeah.
Those are the 3 items. Okay. So we have a motion from Commissioner Wilcox to amend this conditional use permit. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And there's a second from Commissioner Prince. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Thank you. So we will amend that conditional use permit, and then Mr. Fisher, you can proceed with the building permits and the occupancy permits. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the final plat review for Moorcock Manor on the property located at 5813 West, 5300 South. This is a request to add property. It was originally a 2-lot subdivision, and it was a 1 lot plus the remainder of property. And now they want it to be combined into one large lot. Mike, do you have a presentation on this?
I do. I'll share my presentation on the screen. So the item in red that's shaded red, Lot 1 of Penrod subdivision is the current 1 lot subdivision. Of the red outlined area to the left of that is the remainder parcel. That's the current layout of the property. The new Moorcock Manor subdivision obviously will include the entire blue shaded area into a larger one lot subdivision. This
Okay.
lot will be 0.92 acres. It's in the R2 zone. It meets all of the minimum requirements of the R2 zone.
So how much frontage will that be?
That
Is
will
it-
be 200 feet.
200-foot frontage. Okay.
This is showing the proposed plat, which has a 200-foot frontage across the front, outlining the entire property. It's a pretty straightforward subdivision. And again, it meets all the minimum requirements for our R2 zone.
Okay.
Key issues from staff for final plat review. All of the items in the Public Works and Engineering memo have been addressed. The city staff is recommending final plat approval for the RFR, or this, excuse me, that should say Moorcock Manor subdivision.
Okay. Okay.
That's the end of my presentation.
All right. Is there any questions, commissioners? Okay. We can open this out to public comment if there are any.
I have no public comment for the amended Penrod subdivision or Moorcock Manor that have been emailed into the city.
Okay. We haven't received any.
No.
So we'll see if anybody out there live has a comment they'd like to make. It doesn't look like we do. Is that adequate time? I don't know how long to let them wait, but I think we're fine. I did note on the memo, so we're going to close public comment now and bring it back to the commission for further discussion. One thing I did note on the memo is the city staff is recommending apparently we set aside an original escrow for curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the improved lot 1. So the staff is recommending that we release that escrow and in turn create a new escrow for curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the entire frontage. So now it would be a 200-foot frontage escrow. And that would be the condition on this final plat approval. Any comments on that or thoughts?
Makes sense.
Because we don't want to just keep the escrow for just half of the lot now. We've got a whole new lot, so we need a whole new escrow.
Right.
Okay. All right. There's no other
I'll motion that we recommend final approval for the amended Penrod subdivision, Moorcock Manor, 1 lot 5813 west, 5300 south, with the addition of the 200-foot frontage escrow for curb and gutter.
release the old escrow and create a new escrow.
Correct.
Okay.
Motion.
So, okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Platt and we have it seconded by Commissioner Wilcox. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? None. Okay. Next item on the agenda is item number 4. It's a public hearing, final approval for the Quail Cove subdivision, which is 9 lots located approximately 3750 south and 5250 west. It's 5.7 acres. Mr. Fisher, do you have any exhibits for this?
I do. I'll share my screen. Sorry if it keeps starting over. So this is a Quail Cove subdivision. It's 9 lots on 5.7 acres in the R2 zone. It's located at approximately 5250 west, 3750 south. This is directly south of the Quail Estates subdivision and connecting into the Quail Meadow subdivision further north. The map shows the blue area is the existing Quail Estate subdivision that's nearing completion of improvement installation. The red portion is the portion that we're looking at tonight, which is the Quail Cove subdivision. This is the proposed plat for the subdivision. And again, the road going north and south will connect into Quail Estates to the north. It will connect into the future Morning Meadow subdivision to the south and connect into the future Silver Saddle subdivision to the west.
Okay.
Key issues from staff final plat review. All the items in the Public Works and Engineering memo have been addressed. Final approval letters have been provided by Taylor West Weaver Water Improvement District and Hooper Water Irrigation Company, or Hooper Irrigation Company. All other required approval letters were provided during the preliminary plat phase. Lot addresses have been provided, and they are on the plat now. City staff's recommending final plat approval of the Quail Cove subdivision.
Okay. That's all you have on that one, Mike?
It is.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone online that is here to represent Quail Cove? Anybody coming up?
I don't see anyone.
Do you see?
Okay.
I see Steve. Okay, Steve
Yeah, Steve
Bingham.
Bingham.
I see Steve Bingham in the chat.
Sorry, I think it was, Steve Bingham for Nielsen Homes.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Bingham? Tell us what you know.
If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but there wasn't anything on the memo, so happy to answer if there's any questions at all.
Hey, Steve, were you able to participate in our work meeting a half hour ago by chance?
I wasn't, no.
Okay.
No, was there anything that came up there that I should be aware of that I can address?
Yeah, there was a few items. I don't know, Mary, do you want to talk to him about them, or how do you want to handle it?
Well, I'll tell him.
Or I can, it's either way. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bryce, you're up.
Okay.
It's your turn.
There's a couple issues that have come up regarding, one of them is a survey. We have two competing surveys that are, non-conforming with Steve, the Cox residents. They had a survey done 30 years ago. The stake's still in the ground, and the new survey is showing that there's about 15 inch, about 1.5 foot encroachment on their property. They want that addressed. Obviously, we can't, intervene with that. That's between you and the property owners, but that's a key factor that needs to be addressed. With that being said, there's also a small piece of property that is kind of abandoned out there. But from our work meeting, I think that might be able to be handled within another subdivision. Also, there was concern about temporary fence. These people have livestock on their property, and they're afraid if a fence is torn down, their fence, what are the provisions to providing them with a temporary fence so they can still have their livestock out there. Anyway, so I think the big thing is with the survey.
I also have some concerns, but I don't know if you want to address Bryce's first, or if you want me to just give you everything at once and then let you respond.
So I'm not, I wasn't aware of any survey issues, obviously, that came up in that work meeting. Were any of the representatives, Jeremy, were you part of that work meeting? Can you speak to that, to the survey? Jeremy, I think you're on mute too. You there, Jer? think he's trying to call him from his phone. Jeremy Draper's with Reeves and Associates, so see if he can speak to that. Mike, was it along? It sounds like you're describing it along the back of lot 7 or 8. Was it for the full length of that east boundary of 7 and 8? What was the particulars of it?
It appears, from what I understand, I haven't seen it, but it appears it's the entire east boundary.
Yeah, that's correct. It's the entire east boundary.
So my initial thought is we've closed on this land and own it, and so there would have been we closed on a description and title search that would have been done. So it just makes me curious a little bit. Jeremy, you?
Yeah, so I think I got it figured out now. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so the surveys actually do match. We did verify that. We match deeds and also match the fence line out there. So the plats are matching the fence lines with the Coxes.
So how would you characterize the? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to step in for 1 second. In speaking with the Coxes, they claim that they have their rebar survey markers still in the ground with the tops of them painted red. They were able to uncover those and discover them. And the markers that Quail Cove has installed are approximately 18 inches to the east, encroaching onto their property to the east of what their rebar markers are. So there's a conflict there. And we as a planning commission obviously can't make a judgment decision on this, but we feel that it's important enough that needs to be resolved, and we would like to see some kind of a written agreement between the Quail Cove developers and the east property owners, adjacent east property owners, that they agree on a survey on a property line, wherever it may be. I don't know how you split the difference or what you do, but we need an agreement.
Okay, and that's something that we can definitely work with them on, work through Steve on that. According to our surveys, we do match the fence lines, we do match the deed lines, and we'll have this resolved before it goes to council.
Because oftentimes fence lines and property lines aren't the same. We all know that, working out here in Hooper.
Yes.
We've been here enough.
And if I can just address that gap that was mentioned as well. We've been working with Morning Meadows and Brad Views to the south of that, and we will be, when Morning Meadows is presented to you, that'll actually close that gap and match the fence lines there as well.
Okay, let's match the property lines. Like I said, fence lines they're not always true.
Yeah, and if they've uncovered those, we'll get our survey crews out there to verify those, and we'll bring that into our survey so that we do match those.
Okay, I know that the Cox family have uncovered theirs. I haven't spoken personally with the Engelkeys, but I know that the Cox have uncovered theirs, and they're the ones that are concerned about it.
Okay, yeah, we'll verify that, and we'll visit with the Coxes as well.
Okay, and then Bryce brought up another question about the fencing, the livestock fencing that is existing there. Property owners are concerned that during development, that fencing comes down and their livestock gets out. What is your procedure with that?
We'll handle it the same way we did with John to the north, which we'll coordinate with them and either figure out if there's a time when their cattle aren't there, or we'll make sure that we get that land use separation fence up prior to the existing barbed wire fence coming down. So that's not a problem. We certainly don't want to cause them any issues.
So you'll be working directly with the property owners on that as well?
Yep.
Okay.
I also had a question. There was some concern about where Quail Cove butts up against Silver Saddles. I have notes here. It will be critical to coordinate the adjacent developments, the timing of the ditch piping just west of this subdivision. So my understanding is the property line runs directly down that ditch, and something's going to need to be done as far as coordinating the timing of that ditch or being piped and the fence being put in. Excuse me. Is there anything, have you guys worked out anything as far as that goes? Do you have anything in writing about when that's going to be done? Who's doing it? The irrigation water is going to be going into that coming up here soon. And I'm just concerned that if we move that forward, that could cause some issues down the road if it hasn't already been resolved.
Yeah, I've had several conversations with representatives from the Silver Saddle subdivision. So we're looking at that, and there's two separate issues there. One, and again, Reeves may be able to speak to it since they're involved, I think, on all three of these projects. There's an extension of the irrigation supply ditch that's coming from east to west that I believe Brad Buse and their plans on their subdivision will be piping that ditch. And then there's a tailwater ditch that supply line also turns and runs north and feeds Jay Thompson's ground as well as a Taylor's ground further to the north. So there's a tailwater ditch, which is the bigger ditch there, and then there's a concrete supply ditch, and I think the plans on Silver Saddle are called to pipe both of those. I've spoken to a number of the adjacent property owners, as well as several that have worked that ground. My question is as to the tailwater ditch, would just be who, given the development in that area, I'm not sure that anybody needs that tailwater ditch for drainage.
So is there an agreement then, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that, between you and Silver Saddles that has been reached over who is piping it and you said Silver Saddles, but I just wondered if there's anything in writing showing that or anything verifying it?
It's I believe on their plan set is showing that they would pipe that, the supply ditch. The question that and it would involve any of the other property owners. I haven't been able to get hold of the Taylors yet, but they of course flow to the north and to the west. We piped everything along the east side of Quail Estates, and we'll also do that in Quail Cove, which will catch all of the tailwaters from Cox and Ingle Key. So we can certainly work with all the neighbors as to if anybody is using that, needs that tailwater ditch, then it'll get piped as well as the supply ditch.
So my understanding is each of those adjacent properties to the east will have a collection box provided on their property so that their tailwater drains into that collection box and then goes into the piping and moves out away from the property. Is that correct?
Correct. That's for, you're speaking to Ingle Key and Cox.
Ingle Keys and Cox. Yes.
Yeah.
There's another, as far as I know, Brian Zog, he's going to need that tailwater ditch, who is the neighbor to the south of the Coxes. So he's
correct.
Tailwater.
I believe he's hitting the ditch that we piped, though. I don't think he comes any further west than that, than the southeast corner of our subdivision. So he flows to the north, Zog does, from his property, and then hits that ditch that there's a structure going in that will divert that. And I think that's, Jeremy, you might be able to speak to that, because I think that's part of of Buse's plan.
Yeah, that's correct. That's part of his plan.
So the water that would be coming from Zog will, and we do have a written agreement with Buse. He reached out to us and their approvals to get our permission to tap into that pipe ditch that we're putting all along the east side of both Quail Estates and Quail Cove. So we can certainly confirm that and make, so my answer, right, is I believe all the tailwaters will be collected and flow through that pipe on the east side of Quail Cove and Quail Estates. It cuts through the lots, crosses the road, and ends up joining up with Taylor's tailwater ditch to the south or to the north and west. So I don't believe there's any need for that. Obviously, we'll confirm that with all the property owners. But if there's no need for it, then it would seem like it would make sense to fill and abandon the tailwater ditch. The supply ditch obviously will need to be piped to continue to supply both the north end of Jay Thompson's ground and the Taylor's ground even further to the north.
Again, my concern is with the fact that this was put in here and the comment was made. It is critical to coordinate this with adjacent developments. This comment was included so that this issue isn't ignored. Do we have it? You mentioned that you thought that this was on Silver Saddle's plat. Mike, do you know if we have a copy of that or something showing who's responsible for piping that ditch?
Yeah, so the Silver Saddle subdivision is responsible for piping the ditch. The Quail Cove subdivision is responsible for installing the fence. So the coordination is actually, obviously the ditch needs to be piped before the fence can be installed, because the property line is right down the middle of the bottom of the ditch. So that's the coordination that needs to happen between.
So Mike, just a quick question. That ditch, if there's nobody left needing to put tailwater into it, is there a need to have it piped?
My understanding is there's two ditches. One's a tailwater ditch and one's an irrigation ditch.
Yeah, that's mine too. Yeah.
And we're talking about the irrigation ditch.
Okay. Yeah. So the irrigation ditch, and the irrigation ditch won't affect the placement of our fence, of our land use separation fence, right? The chain link fence along that side. The tailwater ditch, if it was needed to be maintained, would, and I've spoken to the folks at Silver Saddle on both of those, and then have since made some calls over the last week. So the coordination is they'll pipe it if there's a need, because we're no longer irrigating on any of the Hulls property, and the rest of the tailwaters to the east are being collected in that structure in the southeast corner of Lot 7 of Quail Cove. I don't believe there's any tailwater going into that ditch. So the resolution would be to fill it, compact it, and put the fence, our fence, over the top of it.
Just looking at the drawing on page sheet 6 of 9 on the plan, it clearly shows the irrigation ditch being a little bit to the west of the property line. However, I don't know that you would be able to build a fence and then have the ditch piped because of the proximity of the closeness of the two.
Right, the supply ditch.
Correct.
Yeah. So they're aware of it. We're aware of it. I've already spoken to them about it, and they're one lot short of that in their current phase. As an aside, we're actually have been discussing with them about actually purchasing the lots from them. They're putting those up for sale. They're not building on them. So that will be coordinated with them. In talking with Kevin Ivins, the first question seemed to be, let's figure out whether or not the tailwater ditch actually is going to be in use for anybody and needs to be piped. Because Because if not, we could fill that now, and then the coordination on them piping the supply ditch in conjunction with our fence would certainly happen.
So it sounds to me like we have, are you talking 3 ditches now then, Steve? We've got a tailwater ditch that's on the east property that affects the Cox and the Engelke property. And then you've got a supply ditch that's on the west side that affects Quail Cove and Silver Saddles. Is there a 3rd tailwater ditch somewhere?
So there's the tailwater ditch that has been piped in Quail Estates and will be piped in Quail Meadows and will be piped in Quail Estates on the east side. That's along the Cox and Engelke boundary. And then along our boundary with Silver Saddles, there's a supply ditch that exists there and a tailwater ditch that will no longer have tailwaters to receive.
Okay. So on the west side of the subdivision, we're talking about 2 different ditches,
Correct.
A supply ditch and a tailwater ditch. Okay.
Yeah.
And the supply ditch needs to be piped
and
taken care of
maintained, and
before the land use fence is put up.
Yeah, and part of the question would be, I guess, is just on timing. This is maybe for Mike, but their plan is certainly to develop the rest of that. Their phase right now stops 1 lot short of that. So in the past, in situations like this, if the adjacent property owner waived the need for that land use separation fence, what typically happens if we do that, we put up a chain link fence, the property owners come in and want a vinyl fence. So if the Silver Saddle folks agreed to that in writing, at least in the past and things I've done in Hooper, that they've allowed for that fence not to have to go in.
I think the concern with that at this point is you're at the final stage in moving forward with the subdivision, and there's no confirmation that the Silver Saddle subdivision would happen. And the fence, the approval right now is based on the other side of that fence being agriculture, which would trigger that requirement for the separation fence.
Yeah, and I'm speaking not to a letter from the adjacent property owner, either requesting that it doesn't go in or in agreement that it's not needed. That would have to come from them. Obviously, that's not. If they didn't say that or agree to that, then we would be required to put it in. So our plan is to put it in. It's, I guess, more a question to Mike, and maybe not even for this meeting, that we can circle on and see if that's something that is acceptable. So according to the plans that would be approved, we have that land use separation fence along the west side of the property.
Okay, so that answers the question on. We were just thinking that there needed to be something in writing regarding the coordination between the 2 developers or the 2 developments.
I'm happy to get that. I mean, I've spoken to Kevin multiple times, and if you want us to have that in writing and delivered to the city prior to city council, that's absolutely agreeable to us. That we'll have that in writing.
Well, I think the planning commission would be more comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I would add to that what Jeremy addressed earlier, which we'll get out with Cox's as soon as they're available and resolve whatever issue there is on their side and make sure that there's a signed, whether that's a boundary line agreement or whatever that form that takes, a signed agreement with the neighbors addressing any disagreement in the surveys.
Any discrepancies in the 2 property lines?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, I've got a question on that. I talked to Cindy earlier today. She met with Jared Hancock on February 20th, brought it to his attention. Jared contacted Reeves Engineering, Chris Cave, and Reeves Surveyor met at their property location to discuss it, and they haven't heard anything since the last week of February. So it's not that this is just coming right now. I mean, this has been an issue for, well, almost a month, and they still haven't heard anything, or that has not been resolved. So I guess that's a concern that way.
Yeah, I was unaware of it till tonight. So Reeves did not make me aware of any issue with it. So I can't speak to them. All I can say is that I found out about it tonight, and we'll make sure that we get it addressed and resolved.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Bingham? Okay. We can open this up for public comment now. If there's anyone out there who would like to comment on this issue of Quail Cove Estates, now would be the time to speak up.
I do have somebody that's trying to get in on the audio. They're on their phone. However, they're not showing that they have audio connected. So I'm going to see if they'll type a comment, and I'll just relay it if that's possible.
Okay.
And I'll go ahead and I will read the public comment that we received via email. I think you've addressed most of these in your discussion, but just for continuity and the fact that it is a public hearing, I'll go ahead and read that out loud.
Thank you.
So this is a public comment from Mike and Cindy Cox at 3781 South, 5100 West. It's for agenda item number 4, final approval on the Quail Cove subdivision. These are the comments that we have concerning the Quail Cove subdivision that is on the Planning Commission agenda for April 9th. The subdivision borders our property on the east border. We are concerned because the drawing that we received in the mail does not show any detail. These are our concerns. We have no information about the berm proposed for our property and our neighbor's property, which also borders their east side. We need sufficient drains for our irrigation tailwater. We have discussed this with Jared Hancock and a representative from Reeves Engineering. We are concerned with the disposition of the small piece of property that borders Quail Cove, Morning Meadows, Bryan Zog, and our property. This is an issue with the Quail Cove east boundary and the survey of our property that is done over 30 years ago, the survey that is on file with the county courthouse. We would like to make sure all these issues are resolved before final approval is given. And that is the end of those comments.
Thank you. So those comments we've pretty well discussed here with Mr. Bingham. Mike, did you get any other public comment? You're muted, Mike.
I have not received anything back. It looks like they'd like to make a comment, but they're on their computer with no audio, and they haven't called in to let me know yet. So,
Okay. Well, I know that this is an awkward way to hold a public meeting, and we're trying to accommodate everyone. But in the interest of time, I think we'll close the public comment. And
Mike, can they? Sorry,
go ahead.
I was going to say, can they chat from their computer? Could they type in their question?
yeah, they've just got a message, and it looks like their comments based on the Whittison subdivision. So that'll be later in the meeting anyway.
Oh, okay.
If I can just address one thing real quick before we close public comments. The discussion that we had with Jared back in February was concerning the gap between the Zog and the Cox and
I'm
the
sorry,
Butte
I
property.
need to know who's speaking, please.
This is Jeremy with Regan Associates.
Jeremy, what's your last name?
Draper.
Jeremy Draper.
Yes,
Thank you.
no problem. So yeah, the discussion that we had with Jared back in February was concerning that gap between Buse and Cox and Zog. At that time, nothing was brought up along the west boundary of the Cox property, overlapping with the east boundary of this subdivision. So as I stated before, we will review that again. I believe our survey did pick up the original property pins, but we'll review that with the Cox family and get that resolved before this goes to City Council.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No other public comments? Okay, then we will close the public comments, bring it back to the commission. Is there any discussion, people, that you want to talk about? None? Okay, having no other discussions, then we can entertain a motion on the request for the final approval for the Quail Cove subdivision. Anybody want to make a motion, or are we dead on this one? Are there more questions we need to talk about?
I'll make a motion. I motion that we table this until we have the issue resolved with the survey. I feel like that's something that we need to address before this moves to City Council.
The survey on the east property line
With the Cox property, yes.
with the Cox and Engelkeys. Okay,
I would also like to add to that motion, the temporary fencing, because it's a big concern, and just get something on plans, whether it's on Quail's plans or Brad Buse's plans with that piece of property in writing that it's what's going to happen to it. So I'd like to add.
Can I just,
Go ahead.
can I just request, with Corona and everything else, we've already lost quite a bit of time on this project. Is there a reason why those couldn't be made requirements for City Council that we still won't get to for another 3 weeks or so, rather than delaying us another month to come back to Planning Commission? Can there be stipulations put in a motion to address the concerns?
let me ask Shauna, is there going to be a second City Council meeting in April?
No, so this next week will not be a council meeting. The next scheduled council meeting will be the first Thursday in May.
Okay, so knowing that, commissioners, I know that we are trying not to put conditions forth to our City Council people, that we want to have clean recommendations for approval or final approval. The property boundary line dispute that the Coxes have brought up is something that we can't rule on anyway. So that needs to be taken care of. And I think that can be brought to City Council. So, and then same thing with the condition that the coordination of the fencing and the ditch be have that in writing as well before it goes to City Council. Since they won't meet until May, I feel like that gives our developers plenty of time to take care of what they need to do. So with that in mind, Amanda, would you consider amending your motion?
I guess my question on that is where this issue with the fence and the piping of the ditch is something that was already known about. And from what Kathy Cox's, or Cindy Cox's, email said, or whoever, I'm sorry, I don't know who mentioned this, that it was brought to the attention in February, why something wasn't done, I guess, before now. This is the first that I've heard about it today, some of these things, as far as Cindy, that.
My understanding, I think that's what Jaren was addressing, is that the February conversation was about the unclaimed piece or the gap in the corner that has now been resolved with Brad Buse's submittal.
And that's part of the Morning Meadow subdivision. That's not part of Quail Cove. So it isn't something we should address tonight.
So and tonight's the first time I've heard anything about any survey issue with the Cox property. And I'll give Cindy a call tomorrow, and if she's available tomorrow, we'll go out on the site and get it resolved.
So what would be needed would be an agreement in writing or
Mhm.
something that the city council can look at and say, okay, the adjacent property owners and the developer have come to an agreement on the property lines, and also the developer of Quail Cove and the developer of Silver Saddles has come to an agreement regarding the west ditch and its piping and fencing, the timing of those two things. Anybody?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I guess I'll just put my 2 cents in. I know that we've really tried to get away from doing conditional approvals. That being said, I certainly understand it's a little bit of an odd situation with the COVID-19 as well. So I don't know that you're going to be setting any sort of precedent with doing that. The only thing I would caution is I think sometimes the heartburn in the past with doing the conditional approvals is that sometimes those tend to get onto the city council's agenda and items still haven't been taken care of. So if we're going to go that way, I would recommend that the motion be amended to say that the item cannot even be placed onto their agenda until city staff has verified that there's something taken care of, either an agreement or a court order or something that the city council can take definitive final action on at their meeting. Because I know that is one of the sources of frustration is, we start making these conditional requirements and then people lose track of them. And then it ends up getting onto the city council agenda and we have 4 or 5 unresolved issues still. So that would be my only suggestion. If there is a desire to make a conditional recommendation to the council, to make it so that city staff verifies things are taken care of and it doesn't even make it onto a city council agenda until it's taken care of.
I'm totally in line with that.
I would be in agreement with that as well.
You could make sure, what would be our date, Sean, to get on that May 1st city council meeting for submittal? Is it 14 days prior?
At this time, I can't give you any date. It would be based upon when you submit that information to the city. And I can let you know what sense information is handed into the city.
I'm just asking about the notice timeframe for our submission.
This is the only public hearing.
Okay, so city council we don't, but we could certainly make it, and you could obviously sign off on that or not. If we don't get those 2 requirements to you, then we're not going to be on the city council agenda for May 1st. All requirements
would be turned into city staff for review.
Okay, yeah. I don't have any problem with that.
Okay, Brandon, thank you. I appreciate your input on that.
Right, no problem. But I will say I would reiterate the commission's desire to, if at all possible, never do conditional approvals. They create a bit of a mess. So
right, and that's what we're trying to avoid is any conditional approvals. But in this case, I think it could be handled since city council isn't going to meet until next month. There's plenty of time for our developers to act. So, given that, Planning Commission.
Do I need to amend? I'm okay with amending the motion in accordance with what Brandon recommended. Again, my feeling is that if it's final approval, we need to have final approval. I don't like to send things through, but I do understand and I recognize their situation. I appreciate that this is a difficult time with COVID-19 and it has changed some things, but I think we need to make a concerted effort to make sure we're not doing this in the future, that this is something that is because of the special circumstances.
Right. And I definitely agree with that. And I think that that's a very good point to make. Okay, so we have a motion from Commissioner Prince to recommend final approval with the condition that there's a written agreement obtained between the developer and the east property owners regarding property lines, and a written agreement between the developer of Quail Cove and the developer of Silver Saddles regarding the supply ditch and the tailwater ditches on the west property. Is that correct?
Correct, and the city staff signs off on this before it's even put on the agenda.
Correct. Okay.
And also the temporary fencing too, because I know that's a big concern for them, for their livestock. So add that as well, please.
Okay, so then it would be amended to also include temporary fencing agreement between the east property owners and the developers of Quail Cove. Is that correct, Bryce?
Yes.
Okay. So we have the motion. I think Shauna has it all written down. Is there a second for this motion? Anyone willing to second it?
I'll second it.
Okay. So that's a second from Nathan. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. All right.
Thank you.
moving
Appreciate
on.
it.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is the RFR subdivision on 3200 South and 5100 West. It's a final plat review. It's a 3-lot subdivision. Mr. Fisher, do you have a exhibit for us?
I do. Let me share the page here. So as you said, this is the RFR subdivision for final plat review. It's 3 lots on 1.54 acres in the R2 zone. It's located in approximately 3200 South, 5100 West. The area in red are the proposed RFR lots. The area in blue are the previously approved RMR subdivision. These lots all front, at least on one side, on 5100 West, which will be where their sewer is served from. This is the proposed plat. It's turned sideways. The road actually runs north and south, showing the locations. These lots all meet the minimum standards in our Title 10 as far as the size of the lot and the distance of the frontage. Key issues from the staff final plat review. All of the items in the Public Works and Engineering memo have been addressed. Regarding note 6 of the staff's review memo, the land use separation fence on the north side of lot 3 will be located at the north property line, and the property owner will be responsible to maintain the 15-foot easement. The developer has indicated that the land drain for this subdivision is no longer being proposed, and that the houses will have no basements. This note will be required on the final plat before it is signed. Final plat approval letters have been provided by Taylor West Weaver Water Improvement District and Hooper Irrigation Company. Other required will serve letters have also been provided. Lot addresses have been provided and will need to be added to the plat, which has been completed. City staff is recommending final plat approval for the RFR subdivision. One note that the comment that was brought up during the work session about annexing into the sewer district, I do have the document here and confirm that has been completed.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. Do you have any more for us?
That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there a representative online for RFR subdivision that would like to make comment?
I'm here online. This is Zach Spencer, but I don't have any comments at this time, unless you've got questions for me.
Commission, do you have any questions for Mr. Spencer? None? Okay. We would open it up to any other public comment if anyone has any comments regarding this. Mike, are you seeing anything? Anyone wanting in? Or Shauna?
I don't see anything.
Okay. Shauna, do you have any emails, any public comment?
I don't have any emails for public comment on this agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Having no other public comments, then we will close that. Planning Commission, do you have any other discussion that you wish to make?
We reviewed everything and we've got everything to make final approval. So I will motion that we recommend final approval for RFR subdivision, 3 lots, 3200 south, 5100 west.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Platt to recommend final approval. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and we have a second from Commissioner Wilcox. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion will pass. Thank you. Thank you, Zach. The next item on our agenda is the preliminary plat approval for the Whittison subdivision located at 6,000 West, 4,700 South. Mike, do you have a presentation for us? And you're still muted, Mike.
Sorry about that.
Now I can hear you.
Okay, so this is a 24 lot subdivision, 16.1 acres in the R2 zone. It's located at approximately 4,700 south, 6,000 west. It will connect on the west side. Access is through the Low subdivision or the Thomas subdivision. The area in blue shaded is the area in question. This is the proposed plat for the subdivision, showing the lot locations and lot sizes, all of which meet the minimum requirements of our Title 10 in regards to frontage as well as area. One thing to note, on the original plat, there was an area on the north that connected into 4,600 South and an area on the east that connected into 5,900 South that will not be part of this subdivision and will become part of an adjacent property when the plat's recorded. Key issues from staff preliminary plat review. Public Works and Engineering have indicated that there are a few items that will need to be addressed during the final plat phase, and the preliminary plat approval is recommended with this condition. Preliminary approval letters have been provided by Hooper Water Improvement District, Hooper Irrigation Company, and Weber Fire District. Other required will serve letters have also been provided. City staff is recommending preliminary plat approval with conditions noted for the Whittison subdivision.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that. Is there a representative here for the Whittison subdivision?
Hello, this is Alan Karras. I am working with the Whittisons to buy their ground and put this subdivision in. And if you got any questions, I think we can answer those.
Okay. Commission members, do we have any questions for Mr. Karras? There was a lot of conditions on the Public Works review done back in February, but it looks like they've all been met, so I'm not sure. For preliminary approval, I don't see any items that need to be addressed at this time. Any other members have any comments?
I agree.
Okay. Shauna, did we have any public comments?
There was one public comment emailed in on Wednesday, April 8th from Mike Flick. They do not list an address, but that comment is that they are for, and they speak in favor of the Whittison subdivision. He has 3 acres in this subdivision and would like to put the money in to make it profitable. If ever small farms can't compete any longer and survive, these homes will help with tax base, infrastructure, first responders, schools. Thank you for your time.
Okay. I believe there
was one comment by Max Simpson in your packets, and I don't have that in front of me, so if you wouldn't mind reading that.
I don't believe I have it in my packet either, but it was.
I have it here.
Okay. Will you read it for us, Amanda, please?
Sure. He says, please do not allow subdividing of less than half acre. It seems you are allowing smaller and smaller lot sizes. That's all he says.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
And these lots will not be less than half acre. It's our R2 zone, so we're good there.
I do have one phone-in comment if you want me to unmute them.
Yes, please.
Okay, Ken.
Thank you. The only thing I wanted to do is in advance, if I needed to, or if there's any questions, I just wanted to be able to speak. So I think that I'm good. Thank you, Mike.
Okay, I guess we didn't get your name and address, sir.
Sorry, my name is Kenny Palmer. Address is 3062 West, 4375 South, Roy, Utah.
Okay. Thank you.
Just to clarify, he's with the development team.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any, I don't have any questions on this one. Does anyone else? Is there any other public comment out there? If not, then we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the commission for some discussion. Any discussion at all? Okay, seeing none, then I guess we can entertain a motion. Anyone on the planning commission ready to make a
motion? Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Go ahead, Nate.
Go ahead, Amanda.
I was just going to motion that we give preliminary approval for the Whittison subdivision.
Okay. With that in mind, is there a second for this motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Prince to recommend preliminary plat approval to the City Council for the Whittison subdivision. And we have a second from Commissioner Platt. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, seeing none, then that motion will pass. Thank you, Mr. Karras. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you for making it possible through the extraordinary times we're going through. I just appreciate it very much.
We're trying hard. Okay, the last item on our agenda tonight is the preliminary plat approval for the H.L. Parker Legacy subdivision located at approximately 5900 South. This says 6100 West. Anyway, it's on that corner of 59 and 59 and going west from there. Mike, do you have a presentation for us?
I do. Thank you. So as you said, it's an 8-lot subdivision. When this was first originally proposed, it was a 9-lot subdivision, which included a lot in the corner, right on the southwest corner of 5900 South and 5900 West. Since been amended to just have 8 lots moving west from there. The 8 lots are on 4.7 acres. They're on the R2 zone. The approximate location is between 5900 and 6100 West, 5900 South. This is the proposed lot, which includes all 8 lots as well as a stub street that will be located approximately in the center of the subdivision, moving south from 5900 South, which will provide access to the open farm space on the south side of the subdivision. All 8 lots meet the current requirements for the R2 zone in regards to lot frontage as well as area. Key issues.
Now, while we're back at that plat, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is that stub street, is that access for future development? Will it be paved? or is it just access to the agricultural ground behind it?
It will be paved with the full improvements, and it'll be primarily for access to future development.
For future development, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Key issues, Public Works and Engineering have indicated there are a few items that will need to be addressed during the final plat phase, and that preliminary plat approval is recommended with this condition. Preliminary approval letters have been provided by Hooper Water Improvement District, Hooper Irrigation Company, Weber Fire District. Other required will serve letters have also been provided. The city staff is recommending preliminary plat approval with the conditions noted for the H.L. Parker Farms Legacy subdivision. That concludes my presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a representative online from the H.L. Parker subdivision development?
Yes, I'm Scott Carlson. I'm here as well as Beverly. I guess I'm not sure, Beverly, or what are you using as your last name now? Not Parker. It was, and it was Ben Bailey. Anyway, Beverly and I are both here. And just to make it fun, I chose a background so it looks like I'm sitting on the site from earlier this winter.
Yeah, it looks pretty nice out there.
How about that?
Okay.
I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this meeting through Zoom and to include everybody and to welcome in public comment. This is a great effort on behalf of the Planning Commission.
Scott, I'm not sure you gave us your address. Can you help us with that, please?
Yep, it's 2264 North and 1450 East, and I'm in Lehigh.
In Lehigh. Well, welcome. Okay. Commission, do you have any questions for Mr. Carlson regarding this development?
No.
Usually no answer means we don't have any. You're aware of the memo. You had a copy of it. There are multiple items that need to be addressed, but they can be addressed before it comes to us for final approval.
So
right?
we received that memo about a month ago, and I've addressed all of those.
Okay. So as long as you're working towards that, then that's all we ask, so that you know what's expected.
You bet.
Any other comments that you'd like to share with us, Mr. Carlson?
We're excited to see us come. We've been working on it for quite some time. We've already resolved the neighboring property questions, and so we won't have to spend a half an hour talking about it tonight.
Okay. All right. At this point in time, we can open this for Planning Commission. Do you have any other questions for Mr. Carlson? I think we've asked that already.
No.
We didn't get any response. Are we good? Okay. Amanda?
I was just saying yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this point in time, we can open this for public comment. If there's anyone out there who would like to make a comment regarding this. I know we have a couple of emails that Shauna will read into the minutes. But if we have anyone online, Mike, are you seeing anyone?
I don't have anyone online.
Okay. All right. Shauna, would you like to read to us the emails that you have received regarding Parker Farms?
So I've received two public comments by email for the H.L. Parker Farm subdivision. One is from Kent Cordon. There's no address listed. This resident has sent in a video attachment with his email that the city could not access. But he speaks in concern about air pollution and issues in Hooper City where there is no curb, gutter, or sidewalk, and particularly issues when you live downwind of subdivisions that don't have curb, gutter, and sidewalk.
Okay, this development will have curb, gutter, and sidewalk on all of its improvements. Is that correct, Mike?
That's correct.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And
And then the other comment I have is from Carolyn and John R. Russell. They have not listed an address, but they are concerned the irrigation water for this land directly affects them because it runs through the middle of their farm. We are wondering how they are going to handle the irrigation/secondary water. What is the provision for how irrigation shares are handled for a subdivision?
Can I speak on that for a second? I've got some information that came to me. From what the Russells, I think their concern was is they'd have 8 other people messing with the head gate, trying to irrigate their half-acre lot, and that was his concern. But what's going to happen, in my understanding, is those owners will turn in their ag water and be serviced by a pressurized secondary water system. So I believe the Russells' concern's been resolved with the mayor, and so I think that's what they're talking about there on that situation.
Okay, I believe you're correct on that.
Those are all the public comments I had.
Okay, thank you, Shauna. And is there anyone out there, Mike, you can see who's wanting to chime in at this point in time?
I have no new comments.
Okay. All right, then we will close the public comments. Is there any discussion from the Planning Commission? None? Okay.
I think as long as he's addressed all the concerns for the preliminary, I think we're good.
Okay. So with that being said, we would entertain a motion on this agenda item for preliminary approval for the H.L. Parker Legacy subdivision. Anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make the motion that we grant preliminary plat approval for H.L. Parker Legacy Farm subdivision.
With
Second that. I'll second Amanda's motion.
Okay. All in favor on that motion?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. That is the end of our agenda items. We can open up for citizen comments if there's anyone out here who would like to make a comment at this point in time. Mr. Fisher can open it up and let you speak. I don't, are you seeing anyone, Mike? That's
No,
trying to get in?
not seeing anyone.
Okay. Mr. Carlson, thank you for your help. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate you taking some time.
Thank you. That's all the people I see on board here.
Sounds great.
So-
Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Motion we adjourn.
Okay, yeah, we will entertain a motion. Mr. Platt who, was that you, Nathan? I'm sorry.
It was, yep.
Yep. So we have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Oh, let's second that motion. Anyone?
I'll second it.
Thank you. It's seconded by Commissioner Wilcox. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank
This has
you.
been interesting.
Good night.
This has been a real learning curve for all of us, but it worked out pretty well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.